Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Blue Tron, back with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. So I'm in recovery from a long week that concluded with a trip to Springfield, Massachusetts to support a friend at a regional and play some of my favorite format, Structure Deck Sealed. However, with each new Dragon Lords deck I opened, I couldn't help but feel frustrated that I wasn't tearing open the new dinosaur structure. Now, the product, which will probably come out in 2068 based on Konami's recent Structure Deck release schedule, contains some sweet-ass cards designed to push a vanilla dino archetype, along with a boss monster that I've already started brewing with, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. So let me jump into Deck Edit and show you how I intend to make maximum use of this monster. So I'm sure your faces are probably comfortably smashed in your palms right now, but bear with me. I think this new boss monster is incredibly cool, I think he's potentially good, and at the very least I think he's worth trying out, especially in this deck I am calling Dino Kozmos. So as always, I will give you an explanation of the new card, a breakdown of what the deck is trying to do, and then a card-by-card description of everything that I'm playing. So firstly, this card is an amalgamation of Yu-Gi-Oh's previous attempts at a battling dinosaur, that's Ultimate Tyranno and Superconductor Tyranno. A couple of things prevented either of these from ever being playable. They have no way to protect themselves. They're both big dumb guys with 8 stars that you have to tribute summon, and none of them are particularly good. They basically have the cover card issue from every structure deck archetype ever. Ultimate Tyranno can and has to attack every monster your opponent controls. Superconductor Tyranno can tribute a monster to deal 1,000 damage to your opponent. You know what's very good? An 8-star cannon soldier. Anyway, this new one has a couple of differences. The first is that it can be special summoned by removing 2 dinosaur monsters from your graveyard from play, which sucks a lot less than tribute summoning. Secondly, it has a semblance of both effects of the other Tyrannos. It can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each, and it deals 1,000 damage whenever it destroys a face-down monster. Thirdly, here's the kicker. It has a defensive effect. Once per turn, during either player's main phase, you can destroy a monster in your hand and flip all of your opponent's monsters face down. Now, you will notice I said destroy and not discard, which probably explains the rest of the deck. So when I read this effect, the first thing I thought of was what benefits off of destruction, and I was immediately whisked back PTSD style to the spring of 2016. So here's what the deck is trying to do. We're playing enough dinos to get 2 into the graveyard consistently, allowing us access to the ever-powerful Superconductor Man. If we get him, we can easily destroy any of our Kozmo ships in hand to search and summon a tin can, which gets us more advantage, does our best impression of the Monarch format, and if we draw into too many Kozmos, it's not a big deal. Kozmo's an alright deck. Now, this leaves us one unfortunate problem. How do we get 2 dinosaurs into the grave? Now, unfortunately, it's not very easy. There's no Dino Foolish Burial, which really doesn't make sense since they are all fossils, and you'd think that's design space Konami would want to explore from a flavor perspective. So we have to figure something else out. Now, the rest of the structure deck spoilers seem to want you to play vanilla dinos and, like, make Rescue Rabbit come out of retirement for Lagia, but even that doesn't pop them in the graveyard turn 1, so because of this, we are playing the other dino engine. We've got 3 of this Jurak, 3 of Flamvel Dog, and 2 of this Tuner. With an attack from the Jurak, we can go into the Tuner and then sync into Excel Synchron, or if we get the dog, Jurak Synchro. The latter scenario takes us a turn to get 2 dinos into the graveyard, but the former gets it immediately. We're also playing a small instant fusion suite since this awful Dinosaur McDonald's promo plus Excel Synchron actually makes Zolkin. Aside from that, we've got some good 6 Synchros in case we ever draw a Tuner plus Fusion, some Xyz that are classically good in Kozmo, and a couple of guys for Zolkin. So effectively, it's a Kozmo shell that's playing a card that synergizes really well with Kozmos, as well as the enabling cards to summon said monster. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the card choices. First, our Kozmo suite. We have 1 copy of Dark Destroyer, 2 copies of Forerunner, 3 copies of Slip Rider, and 1 copy of Landwalker. This is our ship suite. Now, despite the fact that we are playing so damn many of these guys, it's not actually a great way for us to max out on ships. We have to devote so many slots to these suboptimal cards, so this is about as many as we can actually run. 3 Slip Rider because it's the best one, 1 Dark Destroyer because Konami hates fun, 2 Forerunner because 1 isn't particularly enough, but I refuse to draw 2 of them at once, 1 Landwalker. It's the only one that's really questionable, but we need another name for a scenario in which we need a ship, but Dark Destroyer has already been used, and Tin Can's effect really has to go off without binning a Kozmo Town. Next, we have 1 copy of Farm Girl and 3 copies of the main man himself, Kozmo Tin Can. Here's the pilot suite. It's impeccably small. I think maybe we could add a Straw Man or something, but I was never very good at the Kozmo combos. Anyway, this is about the least we can play and feel good about ourselves. 1 copy of Fire King Garunix. I really should play one more, but, you know, he's here for the FK Island. 3 copies of the cover card, Superconducting Ultimate Tyranno, the payoff himself, the ability to AoE Book of Moon at instant speed is nuts. Imagine if your opponent's turn involves playing things, they go to combat, they get booked, and then they have to deal with the Slip Rider or a Forerunner from Tyranno's destruction effect. 3 Jurak Grabion, 2 Jurak Aelio, and 3 copies of Flamfell Dog. This is the Jurak suite. Dog and Grabion can both get Aello. Unfortunately, they aren't the same card. Grabion's a dinosaur himself, meaning we can go into our good 5-star Excel Synchron, but he also only has 1700 attack. He has trouble getting over things. Flamfell Dog has 1900, but is not a dinosaur. Can't get the Superconductor out himself unless you go into this awful Jurak Synchro and finagle a way out of it or figure out a scenario in which it can die. Aello is a good card, but nothing to write home about. I'm playing 3 ofs of both of these because I want to see Grabion very badly, and because multiples of Aello don't actually feel very bad, because our worst case scenario sends him to the graveyard with FKI. Next we have our field spells. 3 copies of Kozmo Town, 2 copies of Fire King Island, and 3 copies of Terraforming. This is the field spell suite. FKI is great in Cosmos, but it is especially good in this deck since we don't really have any other reliable way to send bricky dinosaurs to the graveyard. 1 copy of Emergency Teleport, and let me ask you something. What emergency is Tin Can going to solve? If someone's getting robbed, he's not going to make much of a difference. 3 copies of Fossil Dig. Fossil Dig is the saddest card ever. On one hand, it is a sweet card and excellent searcher, but on the other hand, it means there will never ever be a good dinosaur monster ever printed. It does add consistency to this pile, though, so we're playing 3 of it. 2 copies of Instant Fusion for Norden plays. We are playing a lot of rank 4s, and for Calling the Spirit of Ronald McDonald to make Zolkin. And finally, 3 copies of Call of the Haunted. Pretty good in Cosmos. Extra important here because we are playing so few of them. We need the ability to recycle after a couple of Tin Can activations in the extra. Practical and Norden are our instant fusion monsters. They're fine, but Norden's obviously a little better. Excel and Jurak Velo are our synchro monsters whose creation adds 2 dinos to the graveyard. Excel is for Zolkin plays, Jurak is for dog ones. Zolkin, Clearwing, and Coral Dragon are our Zolkin package. I mean, Coral Dragon is really just a happy accident. He's really in here to make a 6 with Practical or Slip Rider plus Aello. Additionally, him plus a Landwalker makes a Zolkin. CDI and CDN are classically good in Cosmo. Valkasaurus and Durandal both fulfill a singular purpose. For Durandal, we need a rank 5 we can detach from instantly, especially one that has a high chance of drawing us into another Dino plus FKI. Valkasaurus is a dinosaur, which allows us to up our count, and both can be made with Practical. Lagia, Emerald, Abyss Dweller, and Castel are the rank 4s I've landed on. Castel and Abyss Dweller are just good rank 4s, and Lagia is the Dino only rank 4 and, you know, is kind of hard to summon, but not impossible. Finally, Emerald is good for recycling Garunix and getting extra things for Tin Can activations back into the deck. So let's jump into the games and send our opponents to the Stone Age. Or to space. Either one's fine. So our first matchup is up against Blue Eyes White Dragon. You can see we've kind of bricked here, but our opponent is playing cards like Maiden, so maybe we have a chance. Oh god, what does this do? Ooh, Lord. We maybe can make something happen if we get a little lucky off of draws. They're going to go first and normal summon Maiden. Unfortunately, we don't have a very good way to out that card besides just eating it and having to walk over a couple of copies of Blue Eyes. I figure Maiden is kind of useless on her own. We have better setups, so it's possible we could just, you know, kind of Dark Destroyer him out of the game. He's going to use White Dragon's effect to special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon after I target alternative with Cosmo Dark Destroyer's effect. Dark Destroyer is then going to attack the remaining Blue Eyes on the field. That gets Cosmo Dark Destroyer's effect and activates Tin Can. Then in my end phase, I'm going to add 3 Cosmos to my hand. I pick a town and 2 monsters. Unfortunately, I do not get the town, but Landwalker goes to the graveyard, which is a little important later. My opponent is going to then go ahead. They draw a Twin Twister. They're going to use Ancient Whitestone to get back alternative and end their turn. Because they can't do anything, my Tin Can activates again, and this time we do get pretty lucky to get Cosmo Town. This is going to allow us to grind the hell out of our opponent, and look at this card we've drawn, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. That's interesting. At this point, I'm thinking, well, this Cosmo Town allows me to draw about 4 cards here, so we're going to go ahead and do that, keeping the Dark Destroyer in hand, and what do you know? We find a Fossil Dig and a Jurakabula. So we're going to go ahead and get an Aello, summon Gabula, and then banish this Tin Can for Dark Destroyer. I'm going to use Dark Destroyer's effect to destroy itself and get out a Forerunner. Just want to keep it in the banish zone for this extra copy of Cosmo Town to get during my end phase. Pull more Cosmos out of my deck. I'm going to use Forerunner to attack into Maiden. This pulls a Blue Eyes White Dragon out of his hand deck or graveyard. Then Jurek Aiello gets to attack Maiden with Eyes of Blue. His effect goes off and gets the second copy of the Tuner. So during our second main phase, we can sink into Jurek Velfido and then immediately banish those two monsters for Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. Afterwards, we can use Kozmo Town to add Dark Destroyer back to our hand. And what do you know? At any time, we can use Ultimate Conductor Tyranno's effect to discard Dark Destroyer, Book of Moon, all his monsters, and then get Dark Destroyer's effect. So I'm feeling pretty much in control of this game. He starts off with a Twin Twister on this Kozmo Town and the set card. Unfortunately, the set card is called the Haunted. I'm going to get back Landwalker. Landwalker being on the field means that my Kozmo Town can be not destroyed, and that's great. Forerunner is going to be banished as well to get a Tin Can, which can then, of course, immediately be banished for Dark Destroyer. I'm completely off the Tyranno plan now that I can just kill the last threatening card on his board. So we're going to do that, and he's going to concede. So that was pretty convincing. Our next game is up against Lightsworn Galaxy, I guess a deck that is just meant to barf out Minerva and CDI as often as possible. 60 cards basically blows that he's playing Lightsworns off the bat. We've kind of bricked. We have a bunch of ships and an Ultimate Conductor, but only an Aiello as far as things we can actually play. Unfortunately for our opponent, like half our deck is live, so I'm feeling alright about it. He prioritizes a Minerva over a CDI, which I don't know if I can get behind, but, you know, Lightsworn players probably know what's best for Lightsworn. So we're going to start off by Fossil Digging, which is a sweet draw, into a Jurek Gabula, and then use that to attack into the Performance Trick Clown. That means Gabula's effect goes off. We're going to go get a second copy of Gabula, and then go into, in our main phase 2, Castel, and use it to shuffle this Minerva back into the deck. Afterwards, we're going to banish the 2 copies of Jurek Gabula from our graveyard in order to get Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, and because I want to be proactive and I have a bunch of ships in hand, I'm going to use Forerunner as a discard fodder for Conductor Tyranno right now. Flip all his stuff face down, and what do you know? He concedes. This one's a little bit of a heartbreaker. I advise children to look away. Our opponent is playing BES, a deck that just recently got some new support. We are playing the same deck we've been playing for the last 2 games, but unlike the last 2 games, it doesn't look like we've actually bricked. So he's going to go first, set the new BES field spell, which allows him to do a bunch of degenerate things. When this card is activated, you get a boss rush to your hand. All your BES guys get 500 attack and defense. I can't be targeting them with card effects. They can't be destroyed by card effects, and once per turn, you can special a BES monster or a big core monster from your hand. If you normal or special a BES monster, you get to put a counter on that monster so it can use its effect more. Basically a textbook example of a busted-ass field spell. However, the BES monsters aren't very good, so it's not a big deal. He's going to go ahead and get Mark III. That's not really what I want to see. Kind of hard for me to get over, but I can probably engineer some sort of way to do so. We're going to go ahead and normal summon this Aiello, and then instant fusion our way into a Practical, go into a Coral Dragon. This puts 2 dinosaurs in our graveyard for the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. I will use his effect to set this guy. He is no longer recognized as a BES, so I can target and destroy him with Coral Dragon's effect, but I will use Forerunner's effect in order to special summon a Slip Rider and destroy the field spell as well. So let's go ahead and use Coral Dragon to kill this face down monster. In retrospect, I probably geez, it's arguable if I should have done this or gone for the set card, since I know the set card is probably the only thing that can defeat me at this point. But what do you know? It is Air Force, and I mean, I just really can't play around Storming in any way, shape, or form. Because I destroyed one of his cards, he gets to special summon off of Boss Rush at the end of his turn. Then he is going to attack, which sucks, and activate another Boss Rush and end. So I figure if I can engineer a way for this card to die, I might be okay. Gonna go ahead and use Kozmo Town to get Forerunner back, shuffle some cards back, and then summon Tin Can during the end phase. I'm gonna get a bunch of cards, and oh, here's the Solemn Strike. Jesus Christ. Still, I should have a couple life points left, assuming he doesn't draw anything nuts. He has a Tetran, which doesn't do anything, I believe. Thankfully, that's it. So maybe we can make this happen. Unfortunately, this Kozmo Town is kind of off. We are going to use it to shuffle this Slip Rider back, and we draw a Aiello. So I guess we can just set that and set an instant fusion, which, of course, we no longer can activate. Our opponent is going to go ahead and draw the field spell off of the top. That allows him to special summon the Tetran, and I am not interested in playing this game out anymore. So we're back with the deck. Aside from getting savaged in that 3rd game, I was actually pretty impressed by it. Certainly there were a lot of off-camera duels where it bricked pretty badly. There has to be some form of consistency we can add to the deck without having to resort to hand destruction. But truthfully, with so many targets for dinos in graveyard, maybe it's reasonable to be playing that card anyway. I wish there were a little more stun traps, strikes, warnings, etc., but I don't know how I would possibly find room for them. Everything in here seemed pretty good. If I would take things out, the first on my list would probably be the Terraformings and the Fire King Island. They were all right, but nowhere near good enough. I think, much prefer a little bit of a more stun-oriented game and a little bit more draw spells, desires, hand destructions, things like that. Every extra deck card performed very well. I don't think I'd change this up very much. And Superconductor Ultimate Mega Man Conductor Tyranno was very powerful. Some decks just didn't have an out to him. All in all, I think this deck will be fun in an upcoming format, if not slightly powerful. Don't expect to see it in Tier 1 anytime soon, but I do expect to see people trying to make it work for the next couple of months. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed watching me steadfastly refuse to play Rescue Rabbit. I hope you enjoyed watching me staple Quaking Mirror Force onto a monster, and most of all, I hope you just enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give me a like, a comment, or a subscribe. It really helps me out, and if you want to see me play the decks I make on this show on stream, I'm intermittently on twitch.tv/monobluetron. Link is in the description. Finally, if there is a certain deck or archetype you want to see me play in a future episode of this show, let me know in the comments section below, and I will do my best to accommodate you. Otherwise, I will see you Thursday.